say pecan
Yeah.
instead of pecan?
Yeah, pecan. Do you say pecan?
Yeah. I think
No,
it's East versus
pecan
West
sounds
thing.
weird.
Pecan sounds weird?
Yeah.
Pecan sounds weird.
I like pecan. Hello, welcome back to yet another recipe drop video where me and the test kitchen team from Food52 bring you new recipes every week. Today on this episode, I'm making a recipe that I love so much. It is my take on a carrot cake, which by the way, carrot cake is one of my favorite cakes. It's kind of a mouthful, but it's a whole wheat brown butter carrot cake with spiced nuts, not only on top, but also mixed into the batter. It adds a really nice pop of flavor to the carrot cake. So I'm just starting the recipe by grating 1 pound of carrots on the large holes of a box grater. You also might notice that I haven't peeled these. I washed them, but I just don't think that you need to peel them. I don't think it really makes that big of a difference. If you have a food processor, you could also use that instead if you don't feel like doing it by hand. 1 pound of carrots is about 4 cups of shredded carrots. I think the most important time to peel a carrot is if you're making like a carrot salad or something, because sometimes the outer peel, if it's brown at all, it can make the carrot salad a little brown. All right. You could also grate it on the small holes of the box grater, but I find it's nice to have some bigger pieces of carrot in the cake. Since this is a brown butter carrot cake, I'm gonna brown some butter. So I have a medium pot over medium low. And I am gonna use brown butter for the cake and the frosting, but I'm gonna brown it all at once so that I don't have to do it twice. Now I'm just melting the butter, and in about 3 or 5 minutes, you're gonna start to see it foam. The milk solids on top and the whey are gonna sink to the bottom and caramelize and become really nutty and smell toasted. So you can see it's kind of starting to foam a little bit, and the white stuff that's collecting on top, that is the whey and the milk solids that are eventually gonna sink to the bottom and brown. Also, if you like brown butter, I made this asparagus and burrata dish. It's like an appetizer with brown butter, and it's delicious. It's perfect for spring and summer dinner parties. Okay, so the brown butter is almost done. It's really starting to take on a nice golden brown color on the bottom. Okay, so this is looking really good. Really important to keep stirring here just to make sure that it doesn't burn. I'm gonna pour it out into a measuring cup. Make sure this is heat-proof though. And again, half of this is gonna be used in the cake batter, and then half of it is gonna be used in the frosting. I wanna make sure to get those nice, nutty brown bits from the bottom of the pan. You can see here that there's a little bit left over, but that's what's gonna make this brown butter super caramelized and nutty and taste amazing. The thing to keep in mind when you're baking with brown butter is that since butter is partly water and then fat and milk solids, the water is gonna evaporate when you're cooking it, so you're gonna have less in volume than what you started with. So you can see that it's a little bit short of a cup here. So if you're really worried about the liquid amount in your batter, you would add back a tablespoon of water per stick of brown butter. So now I'm gonna make the spiced nuts. We're gonna go back into the same pot with 2 tablespoons of water, 1 cup of brown sugar, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1.5 teaspoon of ground ginger. And then for cayenne, I like to do 1 teaspoon just because I really like that added heat, but you can use ½ teaspoon if you'd like, or just completely omit it. And then I'm gonna add 6 pinches of salt as well. Put this over low heat, and now I'm just gonna stir it together until the sugar has dissolved. Spiced nuts are great because you can make them as spicy, as fragrant as you want. So if you don't have 1 or 2 of these ingredients, that's totally fine. They would still be really good even if you just use cinnamon. And here I also have some parchment paper where the nuts are gonna cool. I'm gonna add in the salted pecans. You could use walnuts if you don't like pecans, or use unsalted. I really like to use salted. And here we kind of have to move fast. So I'm just gonna stir until they're evenly coated. Okay, so I'm just stirring these until all the water from the sugar mixture has been evaporated, and it looks really sticky and thick like this, if you wanna come and look. So you can see here that there's really no liquid left, which is exactly what we want. It's kind of like crystallizing a little bit, which makes it so that there's a really nice thick layer around them. Okay, I'm gonna transfer them to some parchment paper to cool. I'm gonna spread them out into an even layer, just so that they don't all stick to each other. So these are gonna cool. I'm gonna set these aside, and then I'm gonna chop them, and they're actually gonna go in the carrot cake batter, which is really fun. So now I'm gonna mix the dry ingredients. So I have 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, And then I also have half a cup of whole wheat flour. So you would normally use this much baking powder for a cake recipe, but because there are so many dense ingredients like the carrots and the brown butter, I'm using a whole tablespoon of baking powder. This is gonna give us that extra lift that we need. Then I'm gonna add 3/4 of a teaspoon of kosher salt, 2 teaspoons of ginger, as well as 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon because we want the cake to be nice and seasoned, just like the nuts. I'm also adding half a teaspoon of ground ginger. Just gonna give this a nice stir to mix it together. I like to play around with the whole wheat flour ratio for this recipe. Sometimes I use half all-purpose, half whole wheat. This time I'm going with, again, 3/4 all-purpose, 1/4 whole wheat. So you can see here that the nice caramelized bits have kind of sunk to the bottom. So I'm gonna give this a stir before pouring half of it into this bowl. So I'm gonna pour in half a cup. And I'm gonna set this aside in the fridge actually to allow it to cool so we can use it for the frosting. And then I have half a cup of oil. So the reason why I'm using half butter, half oil is because I want that really nice rich flavor from the brown butter, but the oil is gonna make it super light and moist in a way that using just butter wouldn't do. Sometimes I use vanilla extract, actually most of the time I use vanilla extract, but today I'm using a vanilla bean. To do this, I'm just cutting it in half and then opening it up lengthwise, kind of opening it up and scraping all the nice little vanilla beans out. So the ratio is, 1 teaspoon vanilla extract to 1 bean, so you can really use whatever in this recipe. Mix this together. And now I'm gonna mix in 1 3/4 cup of brown sugar. As you can see, I'm using all brown sugar for this instead of white sugar too, and this is because I really like that molassesy flavor that brown sugar brings. And I think it blends itself really well to brown butter and kind of denser cakes like a carrot cake. Okay, now I'm gonna add in 3 eggs, 3 large eggs at room temperature. Okay, I'm just gonna mix this together until all the sugar clumps are gone. So I'm gonna switch over to a spatula now. I feel like it's just a lot easier to fold in the dry ingredients, which is exactly what we're gonna do now. In this case, there's really no worry about overmixing because we're not using an electric mixer, but usually what happens is that if you mix in too much air, then the cake can rise and kind of deflate in the oven. So you'll see it's kind of a thick batter right now, but as soon as we add the carrots, the moisture from the carrots is gonna go into the batter and make it a lot looser. In with the shredded carrots. One of the reasons why I love this carrot cake recipe is that it's not a stacked layer cake. So you're really just baking the cake, making the frosting, making the nuts, and you're just spreading the frosting right on top. So it makes it really easy when it comes to assembling the cake. The nuts are completely cooled. I'm just gonna carefully remove the parchment paper and I'm gonna coarsely chop them into smaller pieces. As I said before, half of this is gonna go into the batter and half of this I'm gonna use to garnish the cake later on. A rustic chop, I like that. And if you feel like this whole spicing the nuts process feels like too much of a hassle for you, you definitely don't have to do that. So you could just add in unspiced pecans instead. We have some smaller pieces, we have some bigger pieces, and then we have those really small little crumbs that are gonna get mixed in really nicely and evenly throughout the batter. Okay, I'm gonna transfer about half of this into the batter. And now I'm just gonna stir the nuts in. You can taste the cinnamon, you can taste a little bit of the cayenne from the nuts. It's really delicious. So I have also preheated the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and now I have a 9-inch cake pan that I'm just gonna grease with a little bit of avocado oil all around the sides. For extra insurance, I'm gonna add a piece of parchment paper to the bottom. I always add parchment paper to the bottom of my cake pans. I just like knowing for sure that my cake is gonna come out. Okay, I'm gonna add this into the cake pan. I just also love how much carrot is in this recipe. So this is gonna bake for about 50 minutes to an hour, depending, or until a toothpick inserted or a knife inserted into the center comes out pretty clean. Okay, so I just took the cake out of the oven. I also, pro tip, if your ingredients aren't totally at room temperature yet, you can just put them by a hot oven. So I have my brown butter and the cream cheese just softening up slightly for the cream cheese frosting. So I'm gonna just run a knife along the sides of the cake to loosen it from the pan, and you can see that the sides have kind of come away from the pan, and that's one sign that you know a cake is done. It's cooled for a little bit. I'm gonna flip it out onto a cooling rack, and I'm gonna allow it to cool completely. Ooh, that's so nice. And while this cools, I'm gonna make the brown butter cream cheese frosting. So for the frosting, I have 8 ounces of softened cream cheese. It's really important for frosting, especially that all the ingredients are room temperature so that the ingredients mix together well. Then I have the remaining half cup of brown butter. For this, make sure to get all the nice brown bits at the very bottom of the measuring cup because that's where the gold is. This frosting is very heavy on the brown butter flavor just because I personally love brown butter. But if you want the cream cheese frosting to shine through more so than the brown butter, then just use half of the amount of brown butter that I'm using. I'm gonna mix in a little bit of vanilla bean as well. I'm gonna mix this until it's light and fluffy. Now I'm gonna add 2 cups of powdered sugar. This might seem like a lot of frosting and a lot of cream cheese for such a small cake, but because it's only a 1-layer cake, I really wanted to have a good ratio of cream cheese frosting on top. So now I'm gonna mix this until it's combined. I'm gonna start on slow just because I don't want the powdered sugar to go everywhere. And once it's all mixed in, I'm gonna increase the speed to high and whip it and beat it until it's really light and fluffy. The key for good frosting is really adding as much air into the frosting as you possibly can. So if you were to stop here, which I know some people might, you're gonna get a pretty dense and thick frosting, but if you increase the speed and you keep eating, it's gonna end up being really nice and light and fluffy. I'm gonna scrape down the sides, and as you can see, even the color has gotten quite a bit lighter just from incorporating more air into the frosting. I almost forgot, I'm gonna add a generous pinch of kosher salt. So I've let the cake cool, and now I'm gonna assemble it. I'm actually gonna place it on this cake plate, which is actually by my parents' glassblowing company called AO Glass. It's in Burlington, Vermont, and it's all hand blown, and we are carrying these cake plates in 4 different colors, as well as a few other items like these really cool glass bag vase that you can put flowers in. I just love them so much, and it's so fun to be able to say that I can use something that my parents made. Okay, I'm gonna put it right on top. Then peel the parchment layer right off. I know this might seem like a lot of frosting, but trust me, you want it all. Also, you could theoretically slice the cake in half if you want and make it a layer cake, but I kind of like keeping it just 1 layer. I'm gonna gently spread it out. I don't want it to fall over on the sides, which it actually might, but for a little tip on, shaping the frosting on top, I like to kind of point the spatula downwards and then just spin the cake plate. I love that this cake plate is yellow or kind of orange to match with the carrot cake. Okay, I'm gonna go crazy with the spiced pecans on top. It's so nice. As I said, I think this is a really fun way to kind of spruce up the carrot cake, especially since it has cayenne in it. So my carrot cake is done. It looks so nice. I love the pile of spiced pecans on top. I almost don't even want to cut it open, but I'm gonna.
I'm so having a piece of that if you're gonna cut it up.
Yeah, we are right now.
We are. Yum. So also one of the reasons why I love this cake is because, you just saw this assembly is so easy. You don't have to do layers or anything. It's super easy. Oh, whoa. Look at that nice slice. I feel like I'm gonna tip it over. You can see the crumb. It looks super moist and tender, exactly how I want it, and the frosting is just melting on top. Okay, so I have Nicole here. She's gonna be my taste tester. So Nicole, this is a whole wheat brown butter carrot cake with cayenne spiced pecans.
Amazing.
And brown butter frosting.
I have been waiting for this
All day.
for so long. I'm so
I'm
excited.
excited you're still here to taste it. So yeah, dig in.
All right. So you put a little spice in the pecans, essentially?
Yeah, so I did ginger, cinnamon,
Ooh.
cayenne.
Oh my God. It's so good. It truly is amazing.
Oh, so good.
Oh my God, the cream cheese frosting, so good. It's not as like thick, it's kind of light. Like I would, if I was not on camera, I'd probably just go like this. Amazing, I am going to take some.
Thank you for watching this episode of Recipe Drop. If you want the recipe, you can find it in the description below. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.